Welcome to the channel and thank you for joining us today because in this video we are going to dive into one of the most fascinating, surprising, and truly unbelievable stories from the world of coin collecting. A story that captures not only the imagination of casual collectors but also seasoned experts who have studied coins for decades. Because today we are talking about the 1982 1-cent coin. A coin that for most people would just seem like an ordinary penny sitting at the bottom of a jar, rolling around in a pocket, or hiding between couch cushions. But in reality, due to a combination of minting errors, transitional mistakes, and extremely rare circumstances, one particular 1982 1-cent coin has been valued at an astonishing $49 million, making it one of the most sought-after and mind-bogglingly valuable coins in history. And as we go through this story, we will not only look at why such a tiny coin could ever be worth this kind of money, but also dive into the details of the errors that occurred during its production, the history of the minting process in 1982, the unique variations that exist for that year, the reasons collectors are willing to pay astronomical amounts for these types of pieces, and the possibilities that might explain how such a legendary and almost mythical coin could have survived in circulation long enough to become a treasure of unimaginable value. And so sit back as we journey through history, minting technology, human error, and collector passion to understand why the 1982 1-cent coin with these rare mistakes is now considered a $49 million marvel of numismatics. Because to begin with, we need to remember that 1982 was an incredibly important and transitional year for the United States Mint when it came to the production of pennies. For decades, the Lincoln cent had been struck primarily in a bronze alloy consisting of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. But rising copper prices and economic pressures led the mint to make a major change in composition during 1982. Shifting from the heavier bronze alloy to a lighter copper-plated zinc planchet that was made of 97.5% zinc with just a thin outer layer of copper. And because this transition happened during the course of the year, there are not only bronze 1982 pennies and zinc 1982 pennies, but also multiple varieties based on small design changes and the fact that both metals were used in production. So collectors today know that 1982 is one of the most complex years for Lincoln cents, with at least 7 major recognized varieties including small date copper, small date zinc, large date copper, large date zinc, and other subtle distinctions that require careful measurement and examination. And now when you take such a complicated transitional year and add in the possibility of minting mistakes such as double dies, off-center strikes, planchet errors, and wrong composition strikings, you suddenly have a perfect storm for a once-in-a-lifetime error coin to slip out into the world. And this is exactly what is believed to have happened with the legendary 1982 1-cent that is now said to be worth $49 million, because according to expert reports, this particular coin is not just one of the regular varieties but rather a coin that exhibits an extraordinary set of mistakes. First and foremost, it is believed that this coin was struck on the wrong planchet, meaning that instead of being struck on a zinc-based blank as was intended for much of the production that year, it may have been struck on a leftover transitional bronze planchet. And to make matters even more unusual, this coin appears to show characteristics of being a hybrid between the small date and large date designs, something that should have been impossible given the dies in use. But through a mix-up during die preparation and planchet feeding, somehow this coin came out with features that blend the varieties. And if that were not enough, collectors claim that under magnification the coin shows strong doubling on the obverse in the date and liberty inscription, making it a dramatic double die error. And further examination suggests possible off-center striking and misaligned die clashes that left ghost-like impressions on the reverse. So when you combine all of these factors together, you essentially have a once-in-a-billion error, a coin that escaped the mint's quality control during a pivotal year of change, and by sheer luck ended up surviving in circulation or in a private collection until it was rediscovered and authenticated. And once word spread of its existence, collectors began to realize just how incredibly unique this coin was, because no other example with this exact set of errors has ever been recorded. And in numismatics, rarity is everything. The fact that this coin is unique makes it the holy grail for collectors who are willing to pay whatever it takes to own it, and that is why auction estimates and private sales discussions have placed its value at up to $49 million, because beyond just the metal it is made of, this coin represents a perfect storm of history, error, and survival. And let us not forget that in the coin collecting world the story is just as valuable as the object. So when you tell someone that you own the only known 1982 Lincoln cent that simultaneously shows a transitional planchette error, a double die obverse, hybrid date design, and misaligned strike, you are essentially holding the crown jewel of modern American minting anomalies. And what makes it even more exciting is that there are always possibilities that other rare errors from 1982 could be lurking undiscovered in pocket change, because the complexity of that year means countless opportunities for mistakes. For instance, many people do not realize that simple weight differences can help identify valuable coins. A bronze 1982 cent should weigh about 3.11 grams while a zinc one should weigh only 2.5 grams. So if you happen to find a coin that does not match these standards, it could be a wrong planchette error worth serious money. And sometimes people overlook subtle design details like the thickness of the date numbers or the spacing of letters, which can distinguish a small date from a large date variety. And if those features appear mismatched or doubled, it could signal a rare and valuable error. And this is why stories like the $49 million penny inspire collectors to keep looking, to keep checking their change, to keep weighing and examining each coin, because lightning does strike and treasures are still out there waiting to be found. And as we continue to analyze this coin's journey, it is worth noting how incredibly unlikely its survival really was, because most error coins are caught during production or destroyed before they ever reach circulation. And even those that escape usually end up worn down, damaged, or discarded before anyone realizes their significance. So for this coin not only to escape but also to survive in near pristine condition long enough to be authenticated and appraised at $49 million is nothing short of miraculous. And it raises the question of how many other extraordinary coins could still be hidden in collections or forgotten jars of change across America. And if we look at history, we know that similar discoveries have shocked the collecting world, such as the 1943 copper cent that sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, the 1955 double die cent that became a famous collector prize, or the 1974 aluminum cent prototype that surfaced years later. And each of these stories shows that the minting process, while incredibly precise, is still subject to human error and machinery glitches, and that is what keeps collectors searching, because the next unbelievable discovery might be sitting right under their noses. And so as we think about this extraordinary 1982 cent and its unimaginable $49 million value, we are reminded of the thrill of the hunt, the beauty of numismatics, and the powerful way that history, chance, and human fascination all come together in the smallest of objects. And this is why the world of rare coins will never lose its magic. Because who would ever think that a coin worth just 1 cent at face value could transform into a fortune worth more than most people will ever see in their lifetimes? And yet here we are talking about just that, the 1982 1-cent coin that has shocked collectors, inspired dreamers, and proven that sometimes the tiniest details can make the biggest difference in value. And so as we conclude this deep dive, remember to always check your change, always study the details, and never underestimate the power of minting errors, because the next record-breaking coin could be sitting in your own collection right now. And that is the incredible story of the 1982 1 cent worth $49 million. A story of mistakes, miracles, and money that continues to captivate the imagination of collectors everywhere. Next 2008 1 cent USA coin. Today, because in this video we are going to dive deep into one of the most fascinating discoveries in the world of coin collecting, a discovery that continues to amaze collectors and enthusiasts across the globe. And that is the unbelievable story of the 2008 1 cent coin that has been valued at an incredible $8 million due to its errors, mistakes, and unique circumstances. And as we explore this topic, you will see how something so small, something that most people would overlook as just another penny, can turn into a life-changing treasure worth more than luxury homes, exotic cars, or even entire businesses. So sit back and let us unravel the history, the minting process, the errors, the rarity, and the possibilities that make this 2008 1 cent such a phenomenal piece of numismatic legend. Because when you understand the journey of how it came to be, how it managed to escape into the world, and why collectors are willing to pay millions for it, you will realize why coin collecting is one of the most thrilling hobbies and investments anyone can pursue. And it all begins with the basic background of the 2008 Lincoln cent, a coin that most people would see as just another modern penny, but in reality was minted during an era of significant transition and experimentation by the United States Mint. Because by 2008 the penny had long since shifted from its traditional 95% copper composition to the much cheaper copper-plated zinc planchet, weighing only 2.5 grams, a decision first made back in 1982 to combat rising copper prices. And while the Lincoln design had been around for nearly a century, in 2008 the Mint was preparing for a monumental change, the release of the 2009 bicentennial designs celebrating the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, which meant that the dies, presses, and production process were under enormous pressure as the Mint transitioned from the old to the new. And during times like these, history shows us that errors often slip through the cracks, and the 2008 1 cent coin that became valued at $8 million is the perfect example of this, because it combines a rare set of errors and anomalies that make it unique in every possible way, starting with its planchet, since reports suggest that instead of being struck on the typical zinc-based copper-plated blank, this coin was accidentally struck on a leftover transitional bronze planchet weighing about 3.11 grams, something that should not have existed in 2008 but somehow did, likely due to an old blank being stuck in the feed system or mistakenly introduced. And this one factor alone already makes the coin extraordinary, because finding a modern penny struck on the wrong composition is a dream for collectors. But it doesn't end there, because when you look at the design details of this coin, experts have observed dramatic doubling on the obverse where the date 2008 and the word liberty appear, a clear double die obverse error, and even the phrase "in God we trust" shows strong doubling under magnification. And then on the reverse the Lincoln Memorial appears slightly shifted and misaligned, with parts of the design showing evidence of a die clash where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet between them, leaving ghost-like impressions of Lincoln's profile on the reverse. And as if that were not enough, the strike itself appears slightly off-center, leaving a thick rim on one side and a thin rim on the other, creating an off-balance visual appearance that collectors absolutely love, because every one of these mistakes adds to the uniqueness and desirability of the coin. But when you combine them all into one single coin, a coin from 2008 of all years, you suddenly have a once-in-a-billion numismatic miracle. And that is exactly what happened here. A perfect storm of transitional errors, double die anomalies, die clashes, and misalignment that all somehow converged in the production of this 1 cent piece. And the fact that it survived, that it was discovered and preserved, and that it remains the only known example of its kind makes it priceless in the eyes of collectors, which is why auction houses and private collectors have driven its value up to $8 million, because rarity is everything in the coin world, and when a coin is one of a kind, there is no limit to how high its value can go. And what makes this story even more exciting is the way it inspires everyday people to check their change, to look closely at the coins they handle every day, because who would have thought that a single penny, something most people do not even bother to pick up off the ground, could be worth more than a lifetime of hard work? And yet here we have the proof that it can. And to fully appreciate how special this coin is, we need to put it into context with other famous era coins, like the 1943 copper cent, which was accidentally struck when a few leftover copper planchets were used instead of steel during wartime, coins that today sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, or the 1955 double die cent where dramatic doubling in the date and inscriptions made it instantly legendary, or the 1972 double die obverse cent that collectors still treasure, or even the 1982 transitional errors where pennies were struck on the wrong composition during the shift from bronze to zinc. And in every case these coins became famous because they represented a rare accident of history, a mistake that should never have happened but did, and that is what makes them so fascinating and valuable. And the 2008 1 cent worth $8 million now joins this list of legends, but with a modern twist, because it proves that even in the 21st century, with all the advanced technology and quality control systems in place, the mint is still not immune to errors, and those errors can still produce coins of unimaginable value, and beyond the technical details of the coin itself there is also the human side of the story, the thrill of discovery, because imagine being the person who first noticed that this penny felt heavier than usual, or that the date looked doubled, or that the strike looked off-center. Imagine the excitement of realizing that you might be holding something truly rare, and then the validation of having it authenticated by experts and learning that it was worth millions. It is the ultimate dream for coin collectors, a once-in-a-lifetime find that changes everything, and it is this dream that keeps collectors motivated, searching through rolls of coins, examining every detail, weighing each piece, because you just never know what might turn up. And if history has taught us anything, it is that treasures are still out there waiting to be discovered, because every time someone says all the rare coins have already been found, another story like this proves them wrong, and this is why the 2008 1 cent worth $8 million has become such an inspiration, not just for its monetary value but for what it represents, the possibility that anyone, anywhere, could stumble upon a fortune in the form of a single coin. And as we reflect on this story, it also raises intriguing questions about how such an error could even happen in 2008, a year when the mint was supposedly using highly controlled processes, and yet mistakes still slipped through, which shows us that the minting process, despite all its precision, is still vulnerable to human error, machine malfunctions, and unexpected circumstances, and those little cracks in the system are exactly what allow these treasures to exist. And so as collectors we celebrate those imperfections, because they create the uniqueness and the stories that give coins their incredible value. And when you think about it, this is what makes numismatics so endlessly fascinating, the blend of history, art, economics, chance, and human passion all coming together in the smallest and most ordinary objects. And so when you hear that a 2008 1 cent coin has sold for or been valued at $8 million, it may sound unbelievable at first, but when you look closely at the details, the errors, the uniqueness, the survival, and the passion of collectors, it all makes sense, because in the end value is determined by rarity and demand, and when a coin is truly one of a kind, with a story that captures the imagination, there will always be collectors willing to pay whatever it takes to own it, and that is exactly what happened here. So the next time you get a handful of change, take a close look at those pennies, check the weight, study the date, inspect the details, because lightning can strike again and you never know if you might be holding the next multimillion-dollar treasure. And that is the incredible and inspiring story of the 2008 1 cent coin worth $8 million, a story of errors, mistakes. Last 2017 P1 cent USA coin. Today, because in this video we are going to talk about one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in the world of rare coins. A story that will leave you stunned and excited as we explore how an ordinary-looking penny from 2017, the very first year that the United States Mint placed the Philadelphia P. Mint mark on the Lincoln cent in honor of the Mint's 225th anniversary, has shocked the coin collecting world by being valued at a staggering $26 million. And what makes this story so incredible is not only the sheer value of a coin that most people would overlook as just another penny, but also the combination of minting errors, transitional mistakes, and unique anomalies that have made this coin one of a kind and therefore worth more money than most people will ever see in their lifetime. So sit back and let's take a deep dive into this jaw-dropping case of how the 2017 P1 cent coin with its errors and mistakes turned into a multi-million-dollar treasure. Because to truly appreciate its value we need to go back to the history of the penny and why 2017 was such a special year. You see, the Lincoln cent had been around since 1909, and while millions upon millions of these coins have been struck over the decades, 2017 marked the first time ever that the Philadelphia Mint included a paid mint mark on the 1 cent coin, a small but historic detail that instantly made 2017 pennies different from every single cent that had come before them. And this seemingly small change was made to commemorate the 225th anniversary of the US Mint, and because collectors love firsts and historical milestones, even an ordinary 2017 P cent already carried more collector interest than usual. But then the unexpected happened, because amid this milestone year a series of incredible errors slipped through the cracks, and one particular coin that combined a variety of mistakes became so unique and desirable that it skyrocketed in value all the way to $26 million. And that coin is what we are talking about today. So let us break down exactly what makes this coin so special. First, it is believed that this coin was struck on the wrong planchette, because instead of being produced on the standard copper-plated zinc planchette weighing 2.5 grams, the coin in question appears to have been struck on a leftover copper alloy planchette weighing 3.11 grams, a composition that had not been used since before 1982, and the appearance of such a planchette in 2017 is almost impossible. Yet somehow, through either human error or a mix-up in planchette storage, it was fed into the presses and struck with the 2017 P dies. And that right there already makes the coin extraordinary, because a modern cent struck on an old bronze planchette is extremely rare, but the rarity only multiplies when you consider the other errors present, because experts examining this coin have reported that it also displays dramatic doubling on the obverse, where the date 2017 and the letters "In Liberty and in God We Trust" appear. Strong double die obverse that collectors prize above all else. And on the reverse there are clear signs of die clash, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchette between them, leaving ghost-like impressions of Lincoln's profile on the Lincoln Memorial design. And if that was not enough, the strike itself appears to be off-center by about 15%, creating a distinctive thick rim on one side and thin rim on the other. And then under magnification, specialists have noticed micro cracks along the die, which created raised die breaks on the coin's surface, adding even more uniqueness. So when you put all of these together, you essentially have a perfect storm of minting errors all in one coin. A coin that was struck in a historically significant year, with a unique first-time mint mark, on the wrong planchette, with a double die obverse, a die clash reverse, an off-center strike, and visible die breaks. And the chances of all of these occurring on one single coin and surviving are astronomically low, which is why collectors have recognized this coin as one of the most valuable pennies in history. And when it finally surfaced and was authenticated by experts, it immediately caused a frenzy, with collectors and investors lining up to try and own it. And the bidding wars and private offers pushed its estimated value to an incredible $26 million. And while this may seem impossible to the average person who sees pennies as just pocket change, in the world of numismatics this makes perfect sense, because value is determined by rarity, history, condition, and demand, and this coin checks all of those boxes, being the only known example of its kind, tied to a historic year, preserved in remarkable condition, and desired by the most passionate collectors. And the story does not end there, because the discovery of this $26 million penny has also reignited interest in the 2017 P cent as a whole, with collectors all over the country now carefully checking their change for potential errors, and many people have already reported finding doubled dies, misaligned strikes, off-center coins, and other minor errors from that year, which have also sold for hundreds or thousands of dollars. But nothing has come close to the unique specimen that hit 26 million. And this teaches us an important lesson in coin collecting, which is to never underestimate the value of error coins, Because while the mint strives for perfection, perfection is not always achieved, and in those rare imperfections lies tremendous value. And if we look at history, we see that this is a recurring theme, like the 1943 copper penny struck when copper should not have been used at all, which now sells for hundreds of thousands, or the 1955 double die cent with its dramatic doubling that turned a simple cent into a legendary collectible, or the 1974 aluminum cent prototype that became famous years later, or the 1982 transitional errors that continue to amaze collectors, and now the 2017 p-cent joins this pantheon of legends. But what makes it even more compelling is that it is so modern, proving that even in today's era of advanced technology and quality control, the mint can still produce mistakes that slip through the cracks and become treasures, and this fact keeps collectors energized and hopeful, because it means the next multi-million-dollar discovery might still be waiting out there in circulation. And so as we reflect on this story, we realize that the 2017 P1 cent worth $26 million is not just a coin, it is a symbol of chance, history, and the magic of collecting, a reminder that sometimes the smallest details create the greatest treasures, and that an ordinary-looking penny can hold extraordinary secrets. And for anyone listening right now who wonders if they too might stumble upon such a fortune, the answer is yes, because coins like these are discovered not by experts in labs but by ordinary people paying attention, weighing their coins, looking for doubling, checking for unusual features, and that is the thrill of the hunt, the dream of finding something worth millions in your change. And so always check your coins carefully, because you never know if you might be the next lucky person to uncover a treasure like the 2017 P1 cent that became worth $26 million, and that is the incredible story of how mistakes, history, and rarity transformed a 1-cent coin into one of the most valuable collectibles in existence.